Good morning. Good morning. I'll tell you what the big idea is. Hey, what's the big idea? Big idea is keep your commitments. That's the big idea. Do what you said you were going to do. That's the big idea. If you said you were going to take out the trash, take out the trash. That's the big idea. You did the dishes this morning, but you forgot to take the trash out. Ugh. I'm frustrated. I don't like it. I do not like it. I did it. I didn't do it. Ay, ay, ay. All right, let's move on to the topic that I was discussing in Big Idea Part 1 that wasn't labeled Part 1 because I didn't know there would be a Part 2 because life happens. Sorry about that. All right. So here's the big idea. Let me paint the picture. I'm just going to go for it. It is what it is. Big idea. TV. TV's a problem. Mainstream media, problem. Can't trust it. There's always an agenda. There are extremely rare exceptions to that. When it comes to the news, there's no exception. It's always twisted. It's always bent towards some ideology, agenda, whatever. Yeah, it is now. Yeah, it's whatever. So here's the thing. You've got talk shows. You've got anything that a good amount of people are watching. It's all about business. It goes back to the money and where the money is at. And what does that mean? So part of the people have is there's aspects of it that just aren't right. Do you know why? I do. I know why. It's not just because people are sinners. It's not just because we're humans and we just can't get things right. It is because of those things, but in a way that you're not thinking. So you want to blame the church. You want to blame the institution. You want to blame the fact that there's a 501c3 situation. You want to blame the fact that it's just part of the system. You want to blame all those things. The bottom line is the church is distorted in its function because of the church. And when I say the church, I'm talking about the people in it. Well, what do you mean by that? What are you trying to say? Well, what I'm trying to say, what is this person doing? What I'm trying to say is, if the church was operating as it originally did in the synagogue model, it would not fall into this situation where it operated like a business. And churches are forced to operate as a business for the greater good, as at least that's what they hope and desire. They hope and desire that they're operating as a business for the benefit of the people, but I don't believe that it necessarily is for the benefit of the people. Well, do you have a better idea? Yes and no. It depends on the people in the church that are Christians. So it's tough because it's tough. So let me clarify, because I'm probably not making much sense yet. So if you knew anything about the synagogue model and how a priest in the Old Testament made it, how he made his living, well, it was different. He didn't have a mortgage very, very unlikely that he had anything remotely similar to a mortgage. So his housing was not an issue. But we need food. We need housing. We need food. All that good stuff. Okay, so how was that provided? It was provided by the members. Good morning. Good morning. And it was part of this system. It was an understanding that the members had. You got to take care of this guy. Got to take care of him. And he got food from the the sacrifices and all that stuff. It was a good system to go read for yourself. I don't want to get all through the details because that's not what this stream's all about. I'm just saying that there was a logical, practical method to operating the synagogue that was lost over time, and not exclusively because sacrifices no longer became a thing. The same principles could be held to this day. Churches that operate where the pastor gets a free house, like near the church, I'm not saying they get it, but they're getting it. They're on the right track, but they probably still blend the operation of their church in a very business-like way, because people don't give the way that they're supposed to make it work. And the expectations in some cases are unrealistic for the pastor or whatever. It's complicated, but it isn't, but it is. It's tough. Why does that apply to mainstream media and entertainment and television and all of that? Well, let me continue. Yeah, I wholeheartedly believe that the church shouldn't have debt. It's like, it forces a church to operate as a business if they have needs like that. The needs of a church, the overhead of a church, needs to be almost non-existent. Almost non-existent. That would mean that we'd have to reduce our churches, in America specifically, probably 99%. People would need to be driving up to 100 miles to find a church, but that church would be more real than all the 99% that used to exist. Anyway, I'm getting a little philosophical or whatever. But anyway, what's my big idea? Well, you want to come up, we know that YouTube loses money. This keeps on getting, as a talking point, right? And when you talk about a church that doesn't have any overhead, you think, well, it's pretty much going to require some really rich guy that's willing to work for free, fund everything himself, and hope for the best, so on and so on. And technically, it's all loss, loss, loss. It doesn't have to be that way, but it ends up being that way. Same thing's true with things like YouTube. I don't know why specifically with the millions, hundreds of millions of advertisements that push through. Obviously, I'm apparently very ignorant as to the operating costs of the servers, of the infrastructure for holding 4 hours per minute of new material. I understand it's massive. It's huge. It doesn't have to be, in the way YouTube does, it's a library of, when is it, 2004, 2005-ish, 14 years, 15 years. I mean, that's a 15-year long library of video information. It's an absurd amount of data. However, what if, this is going on to my big idea, the bottom of, forget it, I'm not going to go there. All right, I'll just say it because it was random and distracting. I can't see the bottom of those buildings, but I can see the top. Anyway, distractions. TV. You know, we have TiVo and DVR and all that stuff, and we don't have TiVo. That's so old school. That's more old school than Blockbuster. That's not technically true. TiVo is quite old, though. There's probably lots of young people that have no clue what that is. DVR, that's a pretty universal term. It almost doesn't exist anymore because of how streaming works. But anyway, we have those, and it's personal, it's intentional. You do with it as you please. With your DVR, you record the things you want. So, imagine this. This is the idea. Finally getting to it. Imagine a TV system. An app for Roku TVs. It would be a website. It would be an app. It would be like YouTube, but not 100% live streaming. Imagine a network of people that signed up for time, and what you have here, the way that it would work is, let's just say this person going 80 miles an hour on a rainy day. Stop being unsafe. So imagine, let's just talk about an hour window, and you've got somebody that signs up for weeks 1 and 3, and you've got somebody else that signs up for week 2 and feeling like I'm getting into a tongue twister here. But there's other people that are interested in the same time slot. That's fine. Well, what happens if something happens in somebody's life and they're not able to stream? We've got backups that are actively live streaming. So you've got backups. You've got backups on people live streaming, and if one is out, it just goes to the next one. And you've got 24 hours a day of nothing but live stream. You've got different channels. You've got a whole channel devoted to Bible study. You've got a whole channel devoted to 24 hours of nothing but streaming news. Folks like Red Elephants. Folks like Actual Justice Warrior, which I don't know if you know that guy on YouTube. Pretty cool. I don't know everything about the guy, but he does some good news. He has some special interests that are different than the other guys out there. Actual Justice Warrior. He's pretty cool. But anyway, all these people, they pull the cord, they jump the ship of things like YouTube, and they're only on this system. Well, here's the thing. YouTube incentivizes on a small scale, but it does incentivize the content creators, and that's why they're doing it. It's not necessarily, I mean, for most of the reason, that's why they're doing it. There is a hope for a lot of these content creators that they will benefit and potentially be able to sustain a reasonable income based on their content creation. For most of the people, especially anybody north of 10,000 subscribers, I think that's definitely in their mind. I don't think that there's anybody in the 100,000 plus range of subscribers that truly believe that they're doing it and don't care at all about the income that they might receive. I could be wrong, but generally, most. Anyway, so why did I tell you a metaphor about the church and how it unfortunately operates as a business? Well, for the same reason that how are you going to make this thing operate? For one thing, you want the infrastructure to be funded properly. So I can't get over. Like I'm locked in. In Florida, there's like this law to, if you can get over, you get over, for vehicles that have flashing lights and stuff. Sometimes you just can't do it. Anyway, how would it work? This is my idea. You've got the infrastructure, the servers, all the energy costs, the internet usage, all of that stuff, the legal cost, all that has to be funded. And then you've got content creators, and how do you pay those guys? Well, and how do the viewers pay? Because obviously you've got the situation of YouTube's popularity, because I can hop on YouTube, look a video up, and not pay a penny. And that's really appealing to the masses. And at some point, you've got barriers of entry depending on the cost. How do you pay for it? I have not looked into PureFlix because I know that it eventually costs, and though it may be a great thing, to be straightforward, they have not done a good enough job for me as a consumer to think that they would be providing material in a dynamic and multifaceted enough way for me to be interested. If they provided wholesome, God-honoring cartoons, if the Bible Project dudes were on there, if Superbook was on there, all that stuff, if that was a meeting ground, and if PureFlix also had a news outlet in addition to their movies that I'm not really that interested in. Don't get me wrong, I've watched some cheesy Christian movies that I actually thought were really good. And one of the the co-founder of PureFlix is an actor that I've seen in some of those movies, and I was actually really impressed. Good story, decent biblical, what's the word? Man, I just blanked on a word that I was going to say. They honored the word. They didn't go off in weird left field tangents like Left Behind and stuff. Yes. Exactly, I agree. Here's the thing. It's about how do you... It all goes back to the beginning. How are you operating? If you're not operating dependent on the money, then you can tell people no easily. When the money is an issue, it becomes a lot harder to guide things in a God-honoring way, and that's part of why the rich young ruler went away sad, because money was his king. He was probably the best dude you knew. The rich young ruler, if you had been friends with the guy, you probably would have been like, this guy is a good guy, like good friend, like respectable, like this guy is great. But it's not about what's on the outside. It's not even about how a person displays. It is about what's in your heart. Yeah, I missed that whole comment, but I saw the wishy-washy part. There's disagreement among those who claim to be part of the body of Christ, but that is the purpose of, I don't want to overstate, one of the purposes of orthodoxy is for the sake of unity in the body of Christ. I think that that's a fair enough thing to say. So what I was talking about on the other video that I had to cut short was, I believe, I don't know emphatically as a way of saying this is absolutely true, but I tend to lean towards the side of things saying that there is or could be potentially benign entertainment. And I gave Columbo as an example of hypothetically benign entertainment. I don't know. Obviously, I wouldn't suggest Columbo for a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old or even necessarily an 8-year-old. It depends. But I also think that this idea could include some benign entertainment. As Owen Benjamin jokes about the Weather Channel, weather obviously could be extremely neutral as long as it's not operating like a business. Hey, it's raining right now. Grab an umbrella. Hey, this is the forecast of temperature so far as we see it. It's the best we can do with the technology we have. Take it or leave it. It is what it is. It's not snowing today. It's 60 something, okay? Like, that's how the weather could be if it wasn't all distorted and influenced by an agenda for global destruction in 13 years and other psychotic nonsense. I know, the world is ending, so give us money. What? But if it's ending, why do you want my money? I don't get it. Shouldn't I turn my TV off and go enjoy life? Why do you want my money? It just doesn't make sense. Obviously, it's illogical. It's kind of hilarious. She's just gotta, I don't know. So, back to what Breath Fresh Bear was talking about. How do you do this? How do you filter out the nonsense, the liars, the people that are in it for themselves? Well, one of the ways is you don't pay them. You don't make it a job. If you operate in a volunteer mode of thinking, it's really going to filter out a majority, not all, because there's people that are just plain psychos, but it's going to filter out a majority of people that are in it for morning, that are in it for gain, personal gain, and you'll clean up the garbage that way. No offense, Panda Garbage Bear or Garbage Person Bear, no offense. But anyway, the point is this: there is a way to do it, and it goes to how the money works. Could you have 48, 72, 240, let's just say 10 people per hour that are queued, every single, 240 person list of quality people that stream consistently or more? But 240, I think, is all it would take. It would only take 240. 10, you've got 3 categories, you got 3 levels deep for each hour spot, and everybody is, let's say you're watching a stream and the whole thing falls apart, and it's on the topic of news. Well, it doesn't just go to a blank screen, it just switches your channel over to the weather or something. There's a way to make it work. hey, you're something along the of watching the TV you want to watch. It's not necessarily a perfect idea, but whatever. I just think that it'd be very interesting to have this system of nothing but human beings that aren't paid off that are doing it, and how do they benefit for the time that they're volunteering? Well, intrinsic benefit by nature of volunteering, and are they providing value, and will the people that are part of the system contribute appropriately? It happens via super chats, and who's to say that it couldn't happen via super chats in this system? So you've got people that somehow, like I said, the system needs to be contributed to work. So it might be a pay-for system, but in addition to that, you've got the super chat as a method. People like to ask questions and get their half a second of fame by having their question asked on stream. It's just the nature of the internet, at least in this age, and that could be part of how it would function. I don't know exactly what Owen and Vox are doing, but I have a strong suspicion that this is what they are doing. Whether or not they're going to use the kinds of ideas that I have, probably they'll never see this. They have busy lives, and it takes a long time for stuff to filter to the top. Anyway, the idea is to have a system of live streamers. You don't have paid off people that you're suspecting are part of this agenda, but then the catch to that is the fact that people that are not in Christ are part of they're part of the problem anyway. What I mean by part of the problem is they're not going to be faithful to the truth, and that is a problem. And I get that that's a problem. It's not one that's impossible to have solutions for, though. I believe that that's what they're doing, Grumpy. I've been paying attention to both of them, and I wholeheartedly think that they're doing they're coming up with an alternative streaming avenue that will involve elements of forum and elements of live chat and elements of live streaming. I think that they're coming up with something big. The fact is, sadly, the funding necessary is kind of overwhelming unless you don't do storage. If you don't do storage and you only focus on, good morning, extra people. I'm just, my finger's up here because I was going through the old comments. Without discrimination. Discrimination's a good thing, though, breath of. If you hurt people's feelings, you move on, go do something else. You know, it's kind of how business works. You know, if you think you could do it better, go give it a try. Christians have so much division between denominations that they end up with boring, wishy-washy content. Yeah, Baldilocks. Hey, Josiah Clayton, I don't recognize. No, I do. Yeah. I saw you last night. That's right. If you think of the money they are making, it's... So, here's the thing. When it comes to making something like this, you need your own servers. You don't want to farm your servers. You're not turning them on either if you're not turning people off. Confused me a little bit on that, Grumpy. So here's the thing. You need servers. You need your own, that you own. You own them, that somebody's not going to turn them off. You need the power, you need the jurisdiction, and you need the protection. You need... the way that the DNS system works, and how you are connected or not, like how you can hypothetically be turned off, is baffling. It's just it's really confusing to me how there's lawsuit terms. Well, that's why you would want to have some type of, that's what I'm talking about. It's all, yeah, absolutely, Grumpy. You want you need protection. You need to have your server in a place that's not going to get shut down, that has some type of immunity, and that's the tricky part. And I don't know where that is. I just don't. The coming persecution of the church will reveal true believers. It's only just begun, but it will reveal those that really believe. So here's the thing. This is related, kind of, a little bit, and I don't think I've clearly said this, but Baldylocks, thanks for saying what you said. This whole, I don't know if they have immunity, Grumpy. Iceland's a great place for this sort of thing because of cost, but I don't know if they have immunity. And there are definitely a lot of sodomites. I love Iceland. I wish I could live there. Sodomy is like the air you breathe up there, unfortunately. Truth is hard. That like the international homosexual parade of the year, some kind of massive sodomy celebration happened in Iceland. I did a master's thesis in my cross-cultural counseling class on Iceland. So I learned a lot about those guys. Truth is hard for them. It wouldn't surprise me if Christians end up content. Yeah, the dark web, but again, I don't understand how it works, and if you really are protected as a hypothetical dark web or black market of the internet or whatever. Okay, gotcha, Breath Up. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I would totally go to Iceland if I could find a way to make a living. I mean, yeah, I didn't think so. But anyway, I had a really good point I wanted to get to before I have to leave. But I know what it was. Okay, identifying liars. I remembered. So once upon a time, yeah, talk about Russia sometime. So once upon a time, a certain someone said that you would be able to identify the fake churches by the selling of indulgences. Okay, so there was this dude, and I'm saying it in a facetious way because it's kind of important fella. But he said that you would be able to identify the church, who was the real churches versus the fake churches based on whether or not they were selling indulgences. It was the instant identification of whether or not they had a false gospel or the truth. And guess what we have today? We have that too. That happens still to this day. But yeah, that'd be wild to think about. So what are some of the things that are like the selling of indulgences in 2019? Let me give you an example. The churches that claim that the entire Bible is a metaphor, and that it was written by patriarchal blah blah blah, and they pick and choose, and they literally say that some of it is good and some of it was written by men, patriarchy and all that. That is a thing that is instantly able to be identifiable as yeah, I think that's the truth, Grumpy, and that's what disturbs me about it. But anyway, a church that says that they think that the whole Bible is this beautiful metaphor for how to live life, that is not a church. Please go back to the little 10-second video I have. It's a picture of the beach. The video is meaningless, but the link in that video is extremely important. It's a one of the best sermons I've ever heard. Is the church I go to. But seriously, one of the best sermons I've ever heard about the church, what the church is, identifying a good church, so on and so on. It's good stuff. But, dude, any church that justifies sodomy is not a church. They are liars. They just are. If they're justifying sodomy, then if they're justifying any sin, and I'm not, let's just say that the churches that, like, we welcome these people, but we're still going to preach the truth. I'm not saying that those guys are instantly not a church because Jesus, we have plenty of examples of Jesus and how he spent his time and who he was around and all of that and the things that were accused of with him. But how are they going about speaking that truth? How are they going about speaking that truth? So watch that. I mean, I'm not going to do nearly as good of a job as that video. You'll see. So go to the 10-second video. It's a picture of the beach, and I think it's titled something along, "Be given if they are really sodomites." But there's thousands, Grumpy. There's hundreds of these churches. A lot of them are in LA and other areas in California. But there are hundreds of these churches across America. Yeah. There are hundreds of these churches with, those guys. Stay away from PCUSA. When I told Breath of Fresh Air, Bear, it's hard to say. When I told him about Presbyterians, I was talking about PCA. PCA is a world apart from PCUSA. It's just, but you can't just rely on a denomination, because just because it's part of the denomination doesn't mean that it's just, oh, it's good, I can trust it, good to go. I mean, I like some of the Anglicans, but I don't like all Anglican churches. It's just, you can't, and all, like, some Baptist churches are okay, but not all of them. And so you can't just trust based on a denomination. We shall not go. It's got to do something. Got to do something with that acronym, guys. We have got to figure something out with the L. Blah blah blah. 2. Like, we've got to figure something out with that acronym. We've got to find a way to subtly identify something that's wise, loving, and also condemning. There's got to be a way to say it. Yeah, exactly. The 2 thing. It's like, are you kidding me? Baptist Church, typically autonomous, little no oversight. Yeah, there's the SBC, Southern Baptist Convention, and other things like it. But you're right, they're pretty rogue, which sometimes is a fine thing. I don't know. There's a lot. This is a huge topic. I don't have nearly enough time to go all over, but no, of course it is not loving. People misuse the word love terribly. Here's my point, and we can put thought and energy towards this and potentially join forces with Owen and Vox on this subject. But I know that the crux of the issue, I know they are, Grumpy, I know. Is the business. When you need money, it's going to be influenced. When you don't, it isn't. So how can you run a system, an organization, in such a way that it's not dependent? And that is the only way that you're going to get unsodomized content, unagended, all that stuff. It's the only way. Yeah. So that's a massive hurdle to figure out. Can anybody hear me? Am I actually still live? Because according to my thing, I'm now in a reconnecting loop of torture and horror. Can anybody hear me? Am I here? Am I live? I see a thumbs up. Okay. Yeah. It just goes in this reconnecting loop, and what am I supposed to do? I do need to go to work, but we need to figure out. I was going to say crypto hypothetically, like the thing in Iceland, could be one of the ways, but not just crypto. What about renewable energy? What about generating electricity? What about other ways that you could create a self-sufficient, independent system that is self-funded, so that you don't have to worry about people? I know, Baldylocks. But I believe that's the only way. You could develop a constitution and all these rules and excellent way, like structure, to try and make it work. But bottom line, whatever, just leave. The time is ticking. I don't know if I'm here or not. I'll just say goodbye. Thank you for joining. Yeah, I agree, Grumpy, wholeheartedly. It's so draining. It's horrible. But anyway, thank you guys for hanging out. I think that we should put a little effort towards this, brainstorming, so on and so on. But a 24/7 live stream, just all live streaming. All live streaming. There's no opportunity for, it's just live. Live, it's just different. Live is different. And anyway, y'all have a good one. Let's read John 15 today. John chapter 15. Let's read that.